Shana Tova.
Shana Tova.
There's a Yiddish song, which Yoni actually introduced me to. It's called Kartoffel Zup mit Schwommen. Kartoffel, anyone know? Potato, yeah. So it's a song about a poor mother who's just trying to feed her poor family some soup. So first, her child, Yosela, enters, and he tells his mother he wants to eat Kartoffel Zup mit Schwommen. He wants potato soup with mushrooms. And the mother responds, Gehört Chutzpah. Have you heard of such chutzpah? Such nerve. I made garlic soup, and you want potato soup with mushrooms? Next, her daughter Zussel enters, and she wants farfel. She wants little noodles in a meat broth, and the mother responds, Gehört Chutzpah. Meat soup like a rich person. And finally, her third child, the youngest, little Chaya, comes in and requests beans with gnocchi. Didn't even know where the little one tried beans with gnocchi. But the mother responds, what does she say again? Gehert chutzpah. I made garlic soup, and nobody wants to eat it. Oy, right? I feel for the mother in this song. Such chutzpah, such nerve. Sometimes the things we ask our parents for. But there are times that call for bringing a little chutzpah. Especially after a difficult year, I think. Some holy chutzpah is what we need. That is, I think we need prayer that really expresses to God what's in our souls, without self-censorship, without shame, without fear. We need to tell God whatever it is we need to say. I know at least that's what I need this year. The song that we chose as our High Holiday Anthem this year, the one we just sang, it comes from Psalm 30. And I think this is a perfect text that reminds us that we can and we should have a little chutzpah when we talk to God. In the chorus of this setting by Joey Weisenberg, we just sang, Elecha Adonai Ekra, I called to you, O God. Rashi, the famous French commentator, he explains this verse as, Elecha Adonai Ekra Tamid, I would call to you all the time, regularly. And what would I say? Rashi continues using the verses of the psalm. We don't actually sing those verses in our setting, but it's there. And it's quite bold. What the psalmist says is, Ma betza b'dami, what profit is there in my blood if I go down into a pit? Can dust praise you? Can it declare your truth? Now this pit, in the psalm, it could be a very literal hole in the ground, a grave, with the psalm asking God, what good is there in me dying? Can I speak to you, God, if I'm alive? Heal me, keep me alive. Now, Rabbi Shai Held, he points out a little interesting bit of wordplay in the word dami, in my blood. It's what it means on the surface level. But we hear echoes in it, a very similar word, the word dom'i, my silence, which is a word that comes up again at the end of the psalm. So ma betza b'dami, what is the purpose of my blood? We can also understand as, what is the purpose of my silence? How can I be in relationship with you, God, if I am silenced? Now, there are some emotional pits that leave us feeling like we have no words and no voice. Maybe this past year left some of us here feeling numb or alone or angry or stuck in the kind of bore, the kind of pit that the psalm speaks of. Maybe we feel unable to express anything to God. Maybe we're unclear if God is listening or what that would even mean if God were listening. But the psalm takes us there at the end. It says, Shema Adonai, listen, God, listen and do something about it. Adonai hayeh ozer li, help me. You turned my mourning into dancing. You undid my sackcloth and clothed me with joy. so that my glory may sing praise to you and not be silent. V'lo yidom. I will give thanks to you, God, forever. So we're supposed to ask God to listen. We call out to God and we say, we need your help. We are not so stubborn or so numb as to think that we can do it alone. Even if our mourning hasn't turned yet into dancing, we have to follow v'lo yidom. We should not be silent. Tomorrow, we'll read in our Haftarah the story of Hannah, of a woman who prays to God and asks God for a child. Beyond being an amazing story in Tanakh, which we'll get to hear tomorrow, Hannah also becomes one of the central role models in our tradition of how to pray. She's the first person in Judaism to pray silently with just her lips moving. And the rabbis of the Talmud, they even go so far as to use her example to set the halachic, the legal standards that are still part of our prayer today. How do we pray intentionally? How do we pray quietly during the Amidah and more? Those are all based on what Hannah does. And in addition to that, Hannah also inspires some incredibly creative midrash. So in the Tanakh, we read about Hannah that she was bitter of soul. V'titpalel al Adonai, she prayed to God, uvchot yifche, weeping intensely. She swore a vow and she said, Adonai tzvaot, God of hosts, if you look at my suffering, remember me and not forget me, but give me a child, I will give him to you to serve you his entire life. So we hear the promise she makes to God in Tanakh. If God gives her a child, she'll put her child into service to God. And we're told in Tanakh that she prays with her lips moving, but we don't hear the actual content of her prayer. So the rabbis imagine it for us. They imagine what the prayer might have contained. There are multiple versions in the Talmud, and each one is a very compelling model of audacious prayer. In just one of them, Hannah says to God, Master of the universe, are you not Adonai Tzvaot, God of hosts? Of all of the hosts and hosts of creations that you created in your world, would it be so difficult in your eyes to grant me one son? The Gemara follows this prayer with a parable. To what can this be compared? It is like a king who made a feast for his servants, and a poor person came and stood at the door and said, give me a piece of bread. And everyone ignored him. So he pushed and he entered before the king, and he said to him, my lord, the king, from the entire feast that you have prepared, would it be so difficult in your eyes to give me one single piece of bread? It's as if Hannah barges into God's palace and throws the gates open, and she and the ruler of the universe, they stand head to head, and she says, God, would it be so hard? Would it be so hard to make one more creation? You have so many. Can you share one more? The Gemara then explores the verse that tells us that Hannah prayed. It says, V'titpalel al Adonai, which they notice is unusual. She prayed on God, very literally, instead of the usual language to pray to God, which is el God. V'titpalel al Adonai melamed teaches shehiticha dvarim kalpei mala, that she threw her words at God. She literally hurled her demands upon God. Now, if there was any model of speaking to God as the ruler of the universe with a little chutzpah, this is it. Our liturgy and Hannah as role model of this season, they help move us from our own places of stuckness and silence to places of calling out, of feeling like we too can thrust our own broken hearts upon God. That is the intention I want to offer for us this season, to really call out to God. Rosh Hashanah invites us to pray and to call out in the way that we need to. For each of us, that's different. But we call out because we need help. We call because we can't do it alone. And we call not because we expect to receive answers, but because we have a human need to cry, to ask, to plead, to express whatever anger or disappointment or pain might be in our hearts as we start this year. To call out is also to be in a relationship with God. Whether we approach God as a trusted parent, Avinu, or as an authority figure, Malkeinu, or maybe both at the same time. And even if there are no answers that come, even if our call is like Hannah's, a challenge, it's an act of hurling our words at God, that is holy, holy work. And I think God can handle our chutzpah prayer. Now, we're also beginning 2 days of a lot of time of prayer and a lot of words. If you look at the machzor, you'll notice there are a lot of words there. For some of us, it'll be a safety net, these words, and it'll be a guide, a way of putting words to feelings and a way of tying us to tradition. For generations and generations, Jews have been saying some version of these prayers at these holidays. But for others of us here, those words will be a place to get lost, or perhaps a distraction from the words that you want to say, from the words of your heart. And if that's you, know that that's okay. And there are many, many, many ways to call out to God. Your call might come at times like Hannah's prayer, in a whisper or quiet, but still sharp and clear. It might sound like Hannah's crying, or like the blare of the shofar without words, just sound. It might be in a voice that grows louder, especially when other voices are praying around us. It might be in a voice that cracks, or breaks, or halts, or even mispronounces the words. That's okay. But whatever the sound of your kri'ah, your calling to God, may it be one of sincerity and one of chutzpah. Elecha Adonai ekra, to you, God, I called, I always called, and I will call. May this be a season of chutzpah, of calling from a place of rawness, of truth, and of boldness as we review our lives, our relationships, our world, and even as we review God. I pray as we start this year that our nighttime tears may be followed by daylight song. Be'erev yalin bechi ulevoker rina. That we make space for mourning and also for dancing. That our pain may loosen around us and we might find ourselves surrounded with joy. Lema'an yazamercha chavod velo lidom, that we may sing and not feel silenced. Elohai le'olam odeka, that we may always have something to say thank you to God. Let the year and its curses end, and let the year and its new year and its blessings begin. Tachel shana u'birchotea, shana tova.
Shana tova.